today we'll be discussing the newly adopted, as of last week, outdoor dining licensing program. This webinar is specifically geared towards design professionals, and there will be future opportunities related to more of the requirements for the business owners to be submitting documents and an outdoor dining license. But this one is really particular to the I guess, technical details. And I'm joined by our Director of Engineering today, Brian Postlethwaite. He has been very much involved in the development of these guidelines, along with many other departments, including the City Clerk's Office, Economic Development, the Mayor's Office, Police, our Fire Department and Public Safety, as well as our accessibility team. So I also have Isabella Maia, who is also in the engineering department with us today, and Adriana Fernandez in economic development. So I'm going to start clicking through. Feel free to use the chat function to submit questions as we are going, and then we will address those as they come up. Adriana or Isabella, if you're able to monitor those while I'm sharing my screen, that would be helpful. And yeah, and also I have Nick Antanavica, Director of Inspectional Services, who's able to join us as well. Yeah, this is being recorded. We are using Zoom, and we'll make this presentation available after the fact. So if any folks have additional questions, or you weren't able to, you want to reference this later, we'll have it available. We have three topics. Basically, we'll mention a little bit about economic development, but it's really the outdoor seating, what the new policy is in 2022, how that differs from previous years. We'll look at the specifics on the application process, and then we'll address those questions for Q&A. So outdoor seating, the guiding documents for this presentation, and really for the program this year, is the outdoor seating license process and appendices, which you can find at somervillema.gov/outdoor dining. It'll be on the 4th tab there. Both of those documents cover everything in this presentation. And so, when looking at a design, please refer to those documents. Brian, are there any other documents that I should be highlighting there other than what's included in those two documents?
Yeah, I think it's probably important that we also, that everybody has a chance to review the process document that is from the Clerk's Department. Nick, I don't know if you have this linked on here, but we can get that for you. It's the document that the Licensing Commission reviewed and pulled key items out of for their rules and regulations. But it is the document that we're going to be basing our administrative reviews off of. In addition, it does reference many other regulations and standards that are promulgated by the state, primarily building codes. And so we have an appendices that goes with that copies those codes just to minimize the need for people flipping through stacks of books and so forth.
Okay, so the 4 different types of outdoor dining setups that a business can apply for are private outdoor seating, public street seating, and then the different types of street seating include sidewalk seating and parklet seating. Again, we've used some photos here to kind of highlight those differences. I don't think I'm going to read out each of the different definitions, but this is also available in the document. So again, this meeting is geared towards design professionals. A design professional is an architect, a landscape architect, engineer, or surveyor. To be able to have a outdoor dining license approved, you'll need to make sure that a design professional licensed in Massachusetts is stamping your site plan drawings. So diving into the application process, we've highlighted kind of the complete application, but specifically the area which will be relevant to design professionals. And so that's really sections 3 through 6 here. As part of the submittal requirements, you will need to submit a scaled site plan prepared by a licensed design professional, meeting the layout requirements. The photos, renderings, and or manufacturer's documentation of all proposed furniture, barriers, fencing, tables, chairs will also be part of that submittal, the submittal documentation. Construction plans for any proposed structures. That includes platforms and ramps and roof, and if there's a roof. Those will require plans prepared and certified by a design professional. And then finally, toilet capacity calculations for both existing indoor seating and proposed outdoor seating counts will need to be prepared by a licensed design professional. Brian, my one question is for section 4, is that something that a design professional would prepare, or is that something that a business owner would likely submit?
Regarding the photos and renderings,
yes,
I think most of it can be provided by the restaurateur or the license holder. Most of these are just items that we want to understand what is the object that you're placing in the public way, whether it's a barrier, fencing, et cetera. When it comes to tables and chairs, that is the potentially more complicated element, because there are ADA requirements for furniture in restaurants required by Massachusetts Building Code. So that's where the detail of either dimensions and or manufacturer's documentation is more important. And that's one of the reasons why a design professional is required, because we need them to certify that what the restaurateur is proposing on the public way is indeed ADA compliant with those regulations.
That's helpful. And then for number 5, I'll mention this later in the presentation, but construction plans for any proposed structures. Does that mean that if I'm doing a parklet that's at grade in a parking space, that I would need stamp plans to be created for by a design professional?
Yes. We need to have certification from a design professional on any proposed improvements to the public way. We need to have the assurity by a professional that what is being installed is accessible and meets both the intent and requirements of our process, but also the applicable laws and regulations of the federal government and state governments.
So getting into it here, we have a rendering here of a scaled site plan and some of the things that you would need to highlight. So that includes the dimension of the sidewalk, where the storefront begins and ends, the roadway, the seating area, and all other noted features. An elevation survey of a sidewalk and or roadway if no platform is proposed. That elevation survey does not need to be done by a licensed surveyor. Is that correct, Brian? Just so I'm saying that right.
Yeah, we specifically broaden the term licensed design professional. We believe that most of these things, these are not property law issues. So a professional licensed surveyor isn't required. They're just one of the professionals who could do the survey. And I think one thing to clarify when it comes to the elevation survey is we are looking to make sure that all walkways in and around your facility are compliant with AAB, ADA requirements. And so that elevation survey doesn't necessarily have to be the traditional spot grades that you would see a surveyor in a yellow jacket doing on the roads with a level and rod and so forth. Having an engineer or architect go out and do a sufficient analysis of the existing sidewalks, of the existing surfaces, of the proposed surfaces, with a smart level showing that the entire area is meeting the required grades and slopes would be sufficient. But all of this needs to be documented and certified so that we're confident that that level of effort has been paid.
Also included in the, what Brian mentioned are below the parking and loading spaces should be included, bike lanes, bus stops, any furniture that's already on the public way, bike rack or a bench. And then the meters, signposts, hydrants, trees, and any landscaping features. What you would normally, I think, include in a survey in a scaled site plan. Continuing, you'd want to show where the entries of the storefront are and where the neighbor's storefront is. So that will be part of the submittal of the site plan. Location of seating platforms or seating platform signs, dog area. Again, if a dog area is proposed, you would have to show how that is, separated or distinguished separate from the remaining area.
One thing that I think is important here, Nick, is being clear of the extent of the restaurant that's requesting the license, and showing the clear scale of it, as well as where the parklet or seating is out front. There are license requirements that it be only in front of your establishment. So that's the importance of understanding where the neighbors' storefronts are. There are exceptions, like there are ways to extend in front of your neighbor, but those have to be documented and it has to be clearly shown on the plans.
We have a question in the chat. Just thought I'd address it now. I may be misunderstanding, but is the cost of using design professionals supported by the city or cost of the business? So, we will be sharing, also on the website that I listed earlier on somervillema.gov/outdoor dining, you can find the information for our both our financial assistance program and design professional technical assistance program. The city is providing up to $10,000 in a forgivable loan towards the cost of implementation for outdoor dining in 2022. This is in addition to the mayor's recommendation and the licensing commission's approval of waiving the required fees for the program in 2022. The cost of a design professional is a cost that is eligible to be used with financial assistance in our program. We'll be discussing that more in our future webinars, which the next one will be on Thursday from 2 to 3. That's Thursday, March 17th. Thanks. Okay, so looking at manufacturer's documentation, Brian, I've put up a couple different, some dimensions of an ADA accessible bench, the photo, and also specs for this, barrier system. But yes, photo renderings, dimensions, and our manufacturer's documentation of all the proposed furniture would be required for a completed application. Brian, is there anything you can add as for the information for the photos that are here? Is this the extent at which you're looking for submittals? Yeah,
this is consistent with what we are looking for. I know in the previous photos, especially of barriers and fences, of what you're actually proposing to use is generally fine. The challenge comes when we have furniture that people are sitting at or rolling up to without some sort of dimensioning. It's really hard to tell if it's meeting the MAAB regulations. So that's really the goal here, is to make sure that what you are saying is going to be accessible seating is in fact compliant. And it's it's the only way that we have to confirm that.
Okay, and then referring to construction plans. So we did mention, licensed design professionals will need to stamp and certify to the safety and accessibility of those construction plans for any proposed structures, including those with roofs. And so depending on the kind of complexity of your design and what you're proposing, an additional building permit may be required beyond the outdoor dining license, which is just something to consider. Likely take a little more time for approval. Nick and Tanavica, who's here from the ISD side, is there anything here that you may want to add? What would really trigger that, the need for the building permit? Is it really just the roof, or is there other examples maybe highlighted in these photos or otherwise?
Sorry, Nick, I can't turn on my video, but I can definitely speak to this. So to help clarify that, we're going to be doing this the same as last year when we went through this. What we will do is, for the most part, if there is a roof overhang, we're going to ask for an affidavit from an architect that the design was looked at. We are not going to specifically request a building permit for these structures. What we will say, though, is that obviously if we see some sort of crazy design, if you're trying to put up a 2-story parklet, then we're going to start looking at things. But if it's just what we saw last year, where we have a couple of 3-sided structures and a shed roof over the top, we're not asking for additional building permits or anything like that. The one item that I would say that we would probably need is that if you see in the top left corner a tent, any tents greater than 400 square feet are required to get a permit from the fire department, fire protection.
And the other photos here would be, the one on the right, top right, that would trigger a building permit, Nick?
Yeah, something that elaborate would end up triggering a deeper review than just on the licensing permit.
Toilet capacity calculation. So this is another thing that's new in 2022. Within the submittal documents, you'll need to include both indoor and outdoor seating capacity and what the counts are for that. And that must be prepared by a certified by a design professional or plumbing engineer licensed in Massachusetts. I've listed the state code and where that's specified. Is there any other guidance you have on this, Brian?
Yeah, I think the only thing that I want to clarify is that this isn't new. This was the standard requirement prior to the COVID pandemic and was part of all previous outdoor seating licenses. We did relax this during COVID primarily because at the beginning, the indoor area was not able to be occupied, so toilet counts were not an issue. But as both indoor seating and outdoor seating becomes available through this license, we need to make sure that the toilets are meeting those the patron capacity that you're expecting.
Next, we have the general standards. This really applies to all outdoor seating. We will get into some specifics related to the parklet seating, which I think probably has the most, I guess, detail assigned to it because of it being in the public way where there is vehicular and bicycle traffic. But for general standards, seating may only be located in front of licensee's storefront. I think we mentioned that exceptions can be made if a neighboring storefront and property tenant gives written permission. And so we would need to have that in writing, and that would be part of the submittal. for the license. Areas with alcohol service will need to be contiguous to their premises and are required to be fenced. I think I don't have any updates. I know the ABCC is still continuing to take up this issue, and I don't know, Nick, you may have some update on that.
Yeah, if I can jump in on this, they did extend it till the end of April 2023 last night. So what was in place last year has been extended for this season as well. So this contiguous has been extended for this year.
Awesome. So just so I'm clear, that means that the
parklets are available, yes.
Great, and for serving alcohol.
Yeah.
Great. We have the map here. This is located in the appendices of where extended pedestrian streets are designated in the city. Brian, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, this is more applicable to the next slide.
Yeah. So again, accessibility standards continuing on. All components of the license area shall meet all requirements of ADA and MABB. This includes access aisles, approaches to seating from sidewalk, clear floor space, and accessible table and seating. The table and seating we referred to earlier and the dimensions and spec sheets that you would need to submit for that. And then accessibility for pedestrians passing on the sidewalk. So throughout, looking at the map, any place not highlighted in red, you would need to meet the 48-inch 4-foot minimum requirement to allow for pedestrians accessibility. For the areas located and highlighted in red, you would need to meet the 5 feet 60-inch minimum on pedestrian streets. Did I summarize that correctly, Brian?
You got it right, Nick.
Nailed it. Thanks. You must provide at least one accessible table or 10% of total outdoor seating in each license area. Brian, one question. So if I'm proposing to have 15, seats, what would be the amount of accessible tables I would need to have?
So if you have, it's measured on the per seat and the per table basis. So if you have 15 tables, 2 of them would have to be accessible. If you have 10, only 1 would. If you have less than 10, only 1 would. And it's in every distinctly separate area. So most applicants and licensees have had just 1 license area, and that makes the calculation easy. But if there are 2 license areas that are separate, both of them would have to comply individually. There is, sorry, there was another piece in there that I'm forgetting. I can't remember it. Maybe we'll come back to it.
No worries. We have a question in the chat. Is the outdoor seating in 2022 permanent or semi-permanent for the season, with demounting capabilities for future years?
So I think I can probably answer that best, but Nick, back me up if I'm saying something off. All seating, all structures, anything that you construct in the public way has to be removable. So I would say anything would qualify as semi-permanent or temporary. Nothing can be permanently constructed in the public way. There's a couple reasons for that. One is that these are still public ways. They have utilities under them. We have maintenance requirements that need to continue. And though we work to avoid as much impact as we can, the city does still have the right, and when we need to ask you to remove the facility. We try to give you 2 weeks of notice, but emergencies can be emergencies, and that could be less than 24 hours notice. So they need to be removable structures, and they need to be removable on a reasonable time frame of definitely less than 24 hours. The other component here is that we currently do not have procedures for winter operations, and we don't know whether the city will be able to develop them and agree on what those winter procedures could be by the time of the upcoming winter. So at present, all outdoor seating would have to be removed by December.
Brian, I realized you were looking for backup. I have your backup, but I don't think you were referring to me. I think you're probably referring to Nick Antoniuk on any of this.
So, and then also just to, reiterate what Brian said, these will be looked at more as semi-permanent and temporary, even coming back once an approval is granted. Two things here. One, we don't know if the legislature will continue beyond 2023 right now. So there are certain setups that potentially could not be permitted after 2023. And then two, anything that, even if it does continue and the legislature does make this permanent past 2023, anything that would be in the public way would have to go through an annual review process to have the permits reissued again. Now, if it's the same setup as before, we'll definitely, I can probably say that it would be an easier process than if it's changing, but we would want to do a review each year and a setup inspection each year that outdoor seating is permitted.
Hey, Nick, can we drill into that a little bit? I know that we have the license process allows for annual renewals that don't require a full review over. Are you referring to just structures with roofs that would require some amount of ISD structural, or are you referring, or do you think that everything in the parklet area or sidewalk would need to be reviewed by ISD annually?
Everything that would be put in the parklet would have to be reviewed annually, just to make sure that the setup is the same. And then when you set it up, we would expect to get a call to go out and do the inspection once the setup is complete, just to confirm that everything is the same again.
Perfect. So this is more of an inspection effort as opposed to a reapproval of a permit or license.
Correct.
Cool. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Public street seating. So parklet, again, this is mostly around the parklets. Parklets seating located on a constructed platform shall be level, which is 2% maximum slope in any direction, stable, fire and slip resistant, and connect to the sidewalk with a bridge plate that spans over the curb and provides a level change of less than a 1/4 inch. I have a picture here of what I believe based on this is approved. Is that correct, Brian? I'm not the authority here. You will have a better sense.
Yeah, no, I really like this image. This clearly is a prefabricated structure, and we're not expecting restaurateurs to provide a prefabricated structure. I would note that it simplifies review process for both you and us, but they're also expensive. So we're definitely not expecting this. A couple things that I would point out is that the 2% maximum slope is indeed, and design professionals know this really well, but I think it's important that every licensee is aware of this, that 2% is a maximum. There is no room over 2% that's acceptable. So generally, when we're designing level areas, we're designing to 1.5% to give the contractor some movement to make mistakes, if you will, or for just incongruities in the existing conditions. The other piece that I would point out is the bridge plate is great, though, because we specifically said that it has to span over our curbing and onto the sidewalk in Somerville, because unlike a lot of cities, we have tumbled granite curbing, which in and of itself is not accessible. So we are requiring the bridge plate span from the parklet platform across the curb to the concrete sidewalk. The 1/4 inch level change is specifically referring to the the vertical distance of where the bridge plate hits the sidewalk. So usually a metal bridge plate works fine. Wooden bridge plates tend to not, you can't have a structural bridge plate of less than 1/4 inch made in wood. So usually those are difficult to get to work.
Thank you for specifying that. Public street seating, looking at the roadway grade. So here's an example of what is not approved this year. Parklet seating that remains at roadway grade, typically 6 inches below sidewalk grade, shall include an accessible ramp with a 1 to 12 inch or 1 to 12, 8.3% maximum slope. That's also 48 inches with a 48-inch clear width, 60 by 60 inch level landings on both ends, and handrails and/or an accessible curb cut in good repair at an existing crosswalk. The survey of existing roadway surface confirming that it is both level and flat will be required. Can you elaborate on the changes here, Brian?
Sure. So when we first started our temporary outdoor seating program, one of the things that we quickly learned is that this type of ramp was not legal under MAAB. And so we went out to MAAB and received a variance for the entire city-wide to allow this specific type of temporary portable ramp. That variance has since expired, and we know that the MAAB is not going to grant that again. So we are, so if a level platform is not what the restaurateur or licensee is looking to construct, then a constructed wheelchair ramp or with handrails with the appropriate slopes would have to be constructed and first designed by a licensed professional.
The language here certainly encourages or makes a lot of sense to build the ramp to grade, considering the space requirement or space limitations in a parklet space.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Nick. Parklet platforms are definitely preferred.
Yeah. So more about parklets. They shall not exceed any further into the roadway than the painted lines, that or 7 feet, whichever is greater. All elements of parklet seating shall remain a minimum of 6 inches in distance away from the outdoor edge of the outside adjacent edge of the adjacent bike or travel lane. Parklet seating shall include a travel control barrier on one or more sides when justified, as determined by Traffic and Parking Commission and/or the city. Traffic barriers may include jersey barriers or water-filled barriers, etc. The design of the barrier is part of the license approval, so these should be included in your site plan. Is that right, Brian?
Yeah, and this is going to be to a certain degree, a conversation with applicants. We're trying to limit the amount of conversations that need to take place between the applicant and the city upon application. But this is one of the areas where there is a judgment call, and we didn't want to require these traffic barriers everywhere because we didn't think it's needed. But there are some high traffic locations that a physical barrier will be recommended. And this style of barrier would be acceptable, as would concrete barriers or the like.
For a design professional who's in the process working with the restaurateur to put together a site plan, who would they be best to reach out to ahead of their submittals to ask specific questions about this?
I think the best thing to do would be to send in an email to engineering@somervillema.gov, and Nick, if there's a comparable email for your team for outreach like that, it'd probably be wise to copy both of us so that we can work together to make sure that we provide an answer as quickly as possible.
And for folks who are attending here, we'll make sure to share those out and do that on our the outdoor dining webpage in the city. You know, the last thing, reflective tape on or markers will need to be on the outside of barriers, again, for high traffic areas and to make sure it's visible. How about for colors of these traffic barriers, Brian? Could I spray paint these black, matte black?
So I think there's a matter of just general good judgment. Don't hide your barriers. You don't want to encourage people to run into them. But generally, the reflective tape is the primary thing that allows motorists to see them. But I don't paint them so as to hide them. That would be bad for both the restaurateurs, the patrons, the city, everybody else.
Highlighting that. I think this is the last parklet seating setback slide, so thank you for bearing with us here. You know, the parklet seating may not be located within 10 feet of a fire hydrant. It cannot be located in a vehicular, bicycle, or any other travel lane. It needs to be, it can't be within 5 feet of a crosswalk. If it is within 20 feet of a crosswalk, objects along the barrier can't be constructed higher than 4 feet from sidewalk elevation. And then seating platforms and other temporary structures, which Brian alluded to earlier, should include removable sections to access manholes. You know, in the instance, the city needs to make, you know, access our utilities systems, that the parklet should be designed in a way that will allow for easy and quick removal with, you know, 24 hours notice, but sometimes even less. And then to highlight that there should be a clear drainage path beneath the structure so that we're allowing for water drainage to easily pass through. And that should be maintained. That's more for restaurateurs, but should be clear of debris so that we're not blocking our utility systems to drain away water and whatnot. Okay, so that's the most of it. The last thing I had here was the city, again, related to our financial and technical assistance program, is including an online directory form for design professionals to be listed who are licensed and have a connection to Somerville. The questionnaire is fairly straightforward. It's, you know, your business name, your license number, if you have any language capacity, we'd be happy to add you to our directory. So you can find the link to be able to apply and get your name on there, and we'd post you up on the on our website. But that's all we have for right now. It's 2:45, 2:43 even. So I want to open it up if anyone has any questions. We've addressed the ones that have been in the Q&A, but if folks want to add something in the chat, you know, if they want to raise a hand, we can unmute them and have them share as well. And so I'll wait if anyone has anything to add now, but Brian or Nick, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Yeah, one thing I noticed on the outdoor dining website that you had posted just a moment ago, that under licensing resources, the big I on the tab does have the process documents and the appendices that we referred to earlier.
Awesome. Yeah, which are that's really what we drew this entire presentation off of. And so that really should be your guiding document for moving forward. Okay, any questions? If not, that's not a problem.
So Nick, we have some
Yep.
If we run out of questions, I do have a couple of things that's probably worth adding for either those who are on the call or for anyone reading or listening to this later. But it looks like we do have a question.
Yeah, from Tyrone. You know, will the slides be mailed out or available? Yes, we'll make these available on the same website. I feel like with all things regarding outdoor dining, we'll include the slide deck on the webpage for folks to access. We'll also post this video if you want to revisit it on our YouTube channel and city channels. So Brian, was there anything you mentioned that you'd like to highlight?
Sure. I think there's one thing, especially when it comes to parklets, that I haven't seen a question for today, but it has come up previously in the licensing commission meetings, is that the parklets will need to be approved by the traffic commission. And though we are encouraging parklets, especially parklets with platforms, because they do the best to provide adequate pedestrian access and disability access through our community. It does require an additional step of going to the traffic commission. What we are trying to do this evening at the traffic commission meeting is to achieve some sort of blanket approval so that each applicant doesn't have to go to the traffic commission separately, so long as they're just occupying a standard metered or time-based parking space. If it's a loading space, et cetera, there probably will have to be a commission hearing, but we're trying to simplify that to the degree that's possible. I'm fully aware that this is more in-depth than what we've been doing in the last 2 years. And it's really important for the accessibility of our community, for public safety, and to create a sustainable parklet and outdoor seating system that will have public support and remain for years ahead. So we believe this level of effort is warranted, though I'm keenly aware of how challenging this can be for many applicants. And so as we begin to review these applications as they're coming in, our goal will be to review and approve them as quickly as possible. And in order to help us do that, we will be prioritizing applications that are the most complete and are and frankly, the easiest to approve as best as we can. Because again, our goal is to get as many of these applications approved as quickly as possible. So I know that it can be challenging, but to the best that we can get really strong, solid applications, the faster we will be able to approve all of them.
Brian, for submitting an application that will be done through CitizenServe, do you have any insight on, I guess that will become available soon? I'm blanking on when exactly. And then also, you know, is this something that the design professional should be submitting, or should be submitted from the applicant, from the restaurateur?
So as far as the application, it definitely should be submitted on CitizenServe. I just checked this morning, and it doesn't appear to me that CitizenServe has opened up that application portal yet for outdoor seating. I'm in contact with the clerk to see when that will occur. I'm confident, Nick, that you'll be able to announce that when we have a date, or at best when it's live. I would encourage applicants to start working through their application and putting together the documents, because that's part of the reason of getting these requirements out there and initially drafted and published in January, so that everyone had a chance to review them, start looking at them. Though there have been some minor changes, they haven't been substantive. So I'm truly hoping that applicants have had a chance to work on getting their heads around them in the past couple of months. But at present, I do not see an application process open yet.
Yes, you're right. We will be sure to announce that as soon as it is available. And for restaurateurs, they'll be the ones to be making the application. Is that just to?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So the licensee should be the actual applicant for it. I don't know for certain whether the design professional can apply for it on behalf of the applicant. That's probably a question best left for the clerk. There are a number of other elements that go into the application that are beyond just design related. There's insurance requirements, there's license requirements, there's a suite of requirements that are just part of the licensing process that likely require the licensee to be conducting the application. But I don't really know if a third party can do that on the behalf of the licensee.
Okay, but yeah, generally make sure it's at this point, go with the restaurateur should be the head applicant, and more to come on if a design professional can also assist on that. All right, any other questions before we wrap things up? Or comments?
It does appear that we have a couple more in the chat.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so Shelley, so just to clarify everything, even temporary parklet structures, which these all should need to go through this full permitting process.
Correct. Everything that is every outdoor seating will have to go through the same licensing process. And whether it is a temporary parklet structure or just chairs on the sidewalk, we will be reviewing all of them through this process. That's the way that it was done before COVID, and that's the way we're going to continue to do it moving forward. It's just that we have expanded the scope of what applicants can do in the public way.
And then another question here from Myra. Can you use a parking level as your walking surface, tables and chairs? Not necessary to have a platform like a parklet as long as you provide the ramp from sidewalk for accessibility. If you are in a parking lot, not in a main road or street.
So generally, yes. We are, though that isn't our preference, it is a perfectly acceptable system. I will acknowledge that putting in the ramp is challenging to meet the 6 inches grade change going down, because you end up having a 6 foot long ramp with a 5 foot by 5 foot level landing at the top and the bottom. And unless you have an agreement with your neighbor, you've probably already gotten to half of your frontage of your establishment. But we haven't prohibited that. And if it works for you, then I think that's a fine design. The other element that can be a challenge is the actual surface of the roadway. We don't generally construct our roads to be accessible. We construct our sidewalks, we construct our crosswalks to be accessible. Generally, a more recently paved road is accessible, but not necessarily. So that is something that your design professional will have to assess and determine whether the surface of the roadway that you're looking to put tables and chairs on, i.e. parking space, is accessible, is considered level, doesn't have depressions and so forth greater than 1/4 of an inch.
And then a follow-up question related to the submission deadlines. What is the opening period for outdoor dining, and then closing period?
Sure. So as soon as the application process through Citizen Serve is opened, we will receive and we will be reviewing those applications immediately. And then it's a matter of those being reviewed and getting to the licensing commission for their approval. Depending on the quantity and density of how these applications come in will depend on how quickly we can get through them and how many licensing commission meetings we will have to host to process them. But our goal is to process them as quickly as possible. The time period with which outdoor seating is currently allowed to be open could be as early as April 1st. I think that it will be challenging to get a license submitted, reviewed, and approved, constructed, and opened by April 1st. But we're going to do everything in our power to not be the element that slows that down. And at present, the licensing commission is approving outdoor seating license through to the end of November.
Hey, any other questions? Oh, thanks, Myra. So yeah, if you have any questions related to, again, more of the economic development, financial or technical assistance programs, we listed our email below. I should also add, in reference to what Brian had mentioned, for questions related to the design and technical specifics of outdoor dining submittals, you can reach engineering@somervillema.gov. And likewise, to make sure that you CC inspectional services at, I believe, isd@somervillema.gov. We'll share that information also on our outdoor dining website. That's somervillema.gov/outdoor dining. Again, this will be made available on our website for any follow-up. Don't hesitate to reach out. We will be hosting virtual office hours every first and third Thursday of the month. So come and join us. The next one will be next Thursday from 2 to 3. It's drop in. If you have a more extensive if you want to have a more extensive conversation, please make sure you make an appointment with the right folks. But just to get a quick answer, have a 10-minute conversation. That's something we're trialing right now and have had good feedback on it. The information is also available on our website to register, and hopefully you're able to join us. That expands beyond outdoor dining. If you're looking to do an addition to your space or change the use or add a accessory use, we'd be happy to talk to you about that. And without further ado, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us. All right. Bye.